Oh, hello. In this video, I'm going to be giving you my my initial reactions to the Chaos Legionaries Kill Team that came out in Warzone Nachman. So, let's have a quick overview. The Legionary Kill Team, first thing to mention is that they get the Security and Seek and Destroy archetypes. So, Security is still generally regarded to be the best, easiest to accomplish deck, so that's a benefit. 6 models total. There are lots and lots of options to think about. We're going to have to think with those options, are different setups going to be kind of equally competitive or equally viable? People who know this list will know that there's a Chaos Marks mechanic. I'm going to talk about that toward the end of the video. It's really quite complicated and it kind of weaves through all of their rules like a thread, touching on a lot of areas. So I'm going to go through the basics first quite quickly, and then we'll have a little proper discussion about Chaos Marks in the second half of the video. So, yep, 6 models. You've got a leader slot with a choice of 2, and then you've got 5 more slots from which you can pull from the sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different options on the list. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 options. Sorry, can't count. So, yeah, let's get straight into it. The leader, then. So you've got to have one. So you're making a choice here between the Chosen and the Aspiring Champion. They're very similar, so they got the same stat block. They will both be coming with a plasma pistol. Yes, they can take a bolt pistol, both of them, but they won't be. The only difference on the plasma pistol is the Aspiring Champion is hitting on a 2+, whereas the Chosen is hitting on a 3+, so this Aspiring Champion is a better shot. When it comes to their combat weapons, though, so with the Aspiring Champion, you always kind of had this awkward choice between the Power Fist, 5 dice, hitting on 3s, 5, 7, or the Power Maul, 5 dice, hitting on 2s, 4, 6, or the Power Weapon, 5 dice, hitting on 2s, 4, 6. I should say the Power Weapon, not the Power Maul. So it was the Power Weapon with its lethal 5 up, and it's 4, 6, or the Power Fist with its 5, 7, but it's only hitting all 3s, and people couldn't quite decide which they prefer out of those two. The Demon Blade very much combines the best of both worlds, so you've got the 5 dice hitting on 2s from the Power Weapon and the lethal 5 up from the Power Weapon, but you've got the 7 on a crit from the Power Fist. You lose Brutal, but it's not that useful to you, and you've got 1 point of damage off your regular attack, but you've got the lethal 5 up, so you're going to hit those big 7s, a third of the time. So Demon Blade's favourable to the Power Fist, I would say. And then special rules. I'll touch on the fact that they've given the Chainsword some extra rules. So they've given the Aspiring Champion's Tainted Chainsword this parry hook rule. Each time a friendly operative fights in combat with this weapon in the resolve successful hit step of the combat, each time you parry with a normal hit, you can select one of your opponent's critical hits to be discarded instead. It's nice, but it's not as good as the Demon Blade, or in fact, I don't even think it's as good as the Power Weapon or Power Fist. You know, it's a fun rule to have, but doesn't make up for damage output. The Aspiring Champion also has In the Eyes of the Gods, so once per turning point, when you incapacitate an enemy operative, you can add 1 to this operative's APL. It's nice, it's a little bit limiting because you get an extra APL, getting kind of that 4th APL or at the end, usually when you've already moved and killed somebody. It could be really good, it could be really powerful. You have got ways in which you can do things like shoot twice and attack twice in Legionaries, but I think overall I prefer the Chosen. Look over at the Chosen special rule. So Demonic Aura basically makes it more difficult for people to fall back from you. They can only fall back 1 circle rather than their full movement from you, which is good. Although I don't know how often people actually fall back. But what I really like about the Chosen is Soul Feast. Each time the operative fights in combat, in the resolve successful hit steps of the combat, if they get any crits, they regain 2 lost wounds, and anything like that where you're regaining wounds is really, really good. And your leader is really important, as we'll get on into the end, because of that Favoured of the Dark Gods rule. you know, that makes your leader a really important piece in the Legionaries army, more so than in other forces. So I think generally you are taking the Chosen, unless you really want that torp to hit on a plasma pistol, in which case you're taking the Aspiring Champion. To be honest, they're pretty balanced with each other. I think that the Chosen just edges it. Okay. Right, the Balefire Acolyte gets a page all by himself. He's amazing. He's a Psyker, so pretty standard stat block, 12 wounds, he's a 3-up save, APL 3, you know, all the standard stuff. He has, first of all, he's got his little dagger, which isn't bad, so it's 5 attacks hitting on 3s, 3, 4, and then every time you fight in combat, in the roll attack dice step, if you retain a crit, you get the target suffers 2 mortal wounds. So why that isn't just mortal wounds 2 in the crit column, I don't know. Because yeah, I don't know. So, but is it because it's happening at a slightly earlier point? It's not when you strike with the critical hit; it's when you retain them. So when you roll them, I think that's probably it. So he's not a slouch in combat, but what makes him really interesting is he is a Psyker. So he can do one of these 3 psychic powers that I've pulled up here on the right hand side. So he's got Fire Blast, which is a shooting attack. No cover and blast with a splash as well. So a big, nice sort of area denial thing. It's only 3-4 damage, but it's nice to have. Malign Influence. Select a Legionary operative visible to the operative until the end of the turning point. Weapons that operative is equipped with gain lethal 5-up, no cover and brutal, which is pretty nice. Buffing your other pieces, I think really useful. And Life Siphon, which is another shoot attack, which is 3/3 damage, 5 dice, hitting on a 3, and when you make a shooting attack with the weapon, if you resolve 2 or more attack dice, you can select a friendly Legionary operative within red of the target to regain D3 lost wounds. So you've kind of got your medic ability there as well. And we know, because we've been playing this quite a lot, that medics are really strong. And this medic ability is also a gun. It's a pretty good gun, you know, it's like having an extra. It's a bit better than a bolter, isn't it? Because it's 5 dice. So, you know, that's a bolter that also heals your dudes. That's pretty good. So I think you're taking him in every single list. I think he's amazing. He does have a strange special rule up here. So if a friendly Legionary Psychic operative can't perform the Manifest Psychic Power action twice in its activation, e.g. it's equipped with the Pages of Scaribus. Now, the Pages of Scaribus is a narrative thing. But there is an item that lets you, in competitive play, that lets you perform 2 manifest psychic power actions. It's the Malign Scripture, which only works once per battle. So on one turn you can have 2. If you do that, then you have to roll a d6. On a 1 or a 2, you suffer 3 mortal wounds. On a 3-up, it works. So, well, you think it's worth paying 2 equipment points to potentially do 2 powers in 1 turn? With the chance of giving yourself a couple of more, well, 3 mortal wounds, I would say it's probably something you're going to take most of the time to have that flexibility, that option to get that extra, whether you do 2 shooting attacks or a shooting a buff. But I think it's a strong piece. I think you're taking him every list because he's a healer as well as a good damage dealer, or an okay damage dealer. The combat specialists. So you get 3 new named combat specialists. On the face of it, their stat blocks are, yeah, all identical. So let's have a look at the weapons first of all. So the Shrive Talon's Blades, 5 dice, hitting on 3s, 3/5 lethal, 5-up. The Butcher Axe is only 4 dice, hitting on 4s, but it's heavier, it's 5/7. And it's got Vicious Blows. So if you're attacking, you get Ceaseless, and if you charged, you get Relentless and Reap 2. So that's strong. And the Legionary Anointed Demonic Claw, 5 dice hitting on 3s, 4, 5, and Rending, which is fine. You know, I don't think I'm the numbers guy that's going to tell you which of these is the absolute best. What I do want to flag up, so the Shrive Talon isn't just a combat monkey. The Shrive Talon has some really interesting utility. So let's look at the Shrive Challenge rules first. Each time he fights in combat in the resolve successful hit step of the combat, if you're the defender, then you start instead of the attack when resolving successful hits. So that's amazing because it really changes what he wants to do. If he gets charged, he's effectively attacking. So he's always attacking, which is really good. Each time he fights in combat, if he incapacitates an operative, an enemy operative within blue gets -1 APL, which is pretty cool. But what I really like is this Grizzly Mark. So for 2 action points, you can place a Grizzly Mark token within an inch of the operative. You can only perform it once. You can't perform it within engagement range of any operative. Each time, an enemy operative will perform a mission action or a pickup action. If they're within the blue of Grizzly Mark, then 1 additional action point must be subtracted to perform the actions. This is going to cripple APL2 teams. You know, you put it on an objective. Obviously, it depends quite on the scenario, how useful he's going to be. But you put it down on the objective, they've got to use both their APL then to interact with that objective, which is really good. And when determining control of an objective, the Grizzly Mark also makes enemy operatives APL count as being 1 less, and this is not a modifier. So that's really good as well. It means you get another source of -1 APL. It can be -2, which is rare, but it's good. So I really like the Shrive Talon because he's a combat guy, but also he's got this thing where you get him out there, move him out, plant down his Grizzly Mark, he's kind of standing on the objective, and then if your enemy decides to charge him, he can kind of murder them, even though they've charged him, which is pretty good. The Butcher is more of a straightforward combat guy, so we've talked about his vicious blows. He's got devastating onslaught, so when he fights in combat, enemy operatives in engagement range can't do the combat supports, they can't give them +1s. And for the purposes of dash, fallback and normal move actions, enemy operatives will treat the distance of this operative's engagement range as white for the action instead of black. So they can't, it's got quite a big interdiction zone, so I quite like the Butcher as well. And the Anointed for me is the least interesting of the bunch. So he basically has this thing where he can once per battle become a demon, and then once you do that, you can't overwatch, pick up or shoot with your bolt pistol. Yeah, but he gains a 5-up Feel No Pain type save, he gains Ceaseless and Lethal 5-up on his Claw, and each time he's activated he can perform 2 fight actions instead of 1, so you lose the ability to do any kind of scenario play and you become much better in combat. I think they're all good. If you want to take all 3, you're not going to do badly. I think for my money, if I'm dropping 1, I'm dropping the Anointed. If I'm dropping 2, I'm dropping the Anointed and the Butcher. We'll look at some kind of team layouts in a little while. But yeah, they're all powerful. I think deciding when to pull the trigger on your Anointed is quite an interesting one as well. A little bit of fun game design space there. The rest, it's kind of derogatory, right? But these are the guys, if you're familiar with the Compendium team, then you're going to be familiar with these 4 guys. So you've got the Legionary Warrior, who is the guy with a bolter or a bolt pistol. You're not really taking him, he's pointless. As in all these teams, really, the option to take the kind of default guy is kind of worthless. If you're doing a very shooting skewed team, you do still have malicious volleys, so maybe you want the bolter in there. The Icon Bearer is largely the same, except he does have Favoured of the Dark Gods. We'll look at that in a minute when we look through the marks, the rules for marks of chaos. Him having Favoured of the Dark Gods does make him a little bit more interesting. Otherwise, he doesn't really stand up to these other things because, again, there's just so much damage output on the specialists. Now, the Gunners. Heavy Gunner obviously got a new option, the Reaper Chain Cannon. I don't like it. I would still pick the Heavy Bolter. So stats wise, you've got an extra dice over the Heavy Bolter, but the Heavy Bolter's got an extra point of damage and piercing on a crit. You know, yes, the Chain Cannon gains Ceaseless, but when you consider that the Bolter, I think, is just better on the face of it, and you can use your, you know, malicious volleys to fight Heavy Bolter twice, which you can't do with the Chain Cannon. I think that just makes the Heavy Bolter still the pick, so I don't think you need to build a Chain Cannon fellow if you don't want to. If you've already got Chaos Marines, you've got Heavy Bolter, then that's the one you want to stay with. And Gunners take Plasma Guns because Plasma Guns are really good. Like, you're taking a Plasma Gun, okay, that you're just taking a Plasma Gun. Right, list ideas. So these are kind of two silly list ideas and maybe a more sensible one. So if you wanted to skew strongly towards close combat, maybe you take the Chosen with the Demon Blade and the Plasma Pistol, and you take the Balefire Acolyte, and then you take all your options, so your Shrive Talon, your Butcher, Anointed, and then you could take an Icon Bearer with a Bolt Pistol and a Chainsword if you wanted. You could take a Gunner with a Melter Gun if you really wanted to be silly, but you could kind of cleave towards that combat archetype. Or you could go the other way and do a really shooty team. So again, now I guess if we're doing shooting, we'll take the Aspiring Champion to get hitting on twos with our Plasma Pistol. Balefire Acolyte, because he's in every team, because he's great. You take a Plasma Gun and a Heavy Bolter, and then let's take an Icon Bearer with a Bolter, and then let's take a Basic Warrior with a Bolter. So we've got 3 weapons that will key off malicious volleys, and we can at least fire our bolters twice. And then the third iteration is probably what I'd actually take as kind of like an all-comers list. Chosen with a Demon Blade and a Plasma Pistol, the Balefire Acolyte, the Shrive Talon, and the Butcher. I've dropped the Anointing because I don't like him, and I've dropped the Icon Bearer because as useful as he is now more useful, but it's like a lot of things. He's not as useful as a Plasma Gun or a Heavy Bolter, so I take the Plasma Gun and the Heavy Bolter, the Butcher and the Shrive Talon, the Balefire Acolyte, and the Chosen. I think you've got quite a flexible kind of all-comers team there. That's probably what I would go if it's your first game with these and you want to put some models on the table. Those are the ones that I would choose to put on the table. But yeah, you can skew them really combaty, you can skew them quite shooty, depending on what you want to do. Obviously, the people who get good with these will have a big roster, and they'll pick from their roster what they want for the particular mission and their particular opponents. But this isn't a team I intend to main, so these really are just my first impressions. Alright, let's talk about Chaos Marks. Okay. So, all these guys that we've talked about, you've got to give them a Chaos Mark. You've got to give them the Mark of Khorne, Nurgle, Slaanesh, Tzeentch, or Undivided. So you've got a choice of 5. You're also locked out, so you can't mix Khorne and Slaanesh, and you can't mix Nurgle and Tzeentch. And this is a roster level rule. So it's not just inside the band that you've picked for that game. On your entire roster of 20, you can't have Khorne and Slaanesh on the same roster, you can't have Nurgle and Tzeentch on the same roster. So effectively, if you're wanting to rules-wise pick the best, and you're not worrying about the narrative or what you want to paint, colour you want to paint, or anything like that, we'll talk about that a bit later. Rules-wise, you've got to decide which you prefer between Khorne and Slaanesh and which you prefer between Nurgle and Tzeentch, and then you've got the 2 that you can mix in with Undivided, so you've got effectively 3 that you can pick from. So let's look at what these give you. So Khorne and Slaanesh, first of all, you get a base ability. So Slaanesh gives you an extra inch of movement, and so sorry, I'll get my pen so you can see what's going on. Right. So we're here. Slaanesh gives you an extra inch of movement, whereas Khorne, if you didn't get any crits, you could strike one of your normal hits becomes a crit. Okay? And then also strategic ploys, right? So the ploys are all keyed off the marks, right? So Khorne operatives can spend a command point. If you spend a command point for your whole team, all the Khorne operatives can have Blood for the Blood God. So if you charge, the first time you strike, you get additional damage. Okay. Yep. Each time as well in combat. So each dice, each hit, right, is going to do an extra point of damage. Perpetual aggression. Until the end of the turning point after a friendly Khorne operative fights in combat. If it's not within engagement range of an enemy operative, it can make a move following the same as a normal move action with the following exceptions. You can only move, so you can do a free dash that's like a follow-up into engagement range with another operative, and you can try and move with it to basically try and you can, after you kill somebody, you can dash and try and get into combat with another guy, or at least, get a dash further towards them. They seem really powerful, And let's just, I know I'm jumping all over the place, let's just jump down here. So, Favoured of the Dark Gods. Once per turning point, when it's your turn to use Strategic Ploy, if any friendly operatives with this ability are in the kill zone, you can use a Strategic Ploy without spending any CP, and that ploy must have the same Mark of Chaos keyword as one friendly operatives with this ability. So your leader and also your icon have this ability, right? So your leader and your icon can get a free strategic ploy every turn that depends on their mark. So you've got this thing where maybe you want to, if you're playing a combat warband, you want to stack most of your guys as Khorne, so that every single turn you can say we've got Blood for the Blood God on most of our guys, right? You can't have them all Khorne because, I mean, you can, if you don't include a sorcerer, you can just go, right, all my guys worship Khorne, they're all benefiting from this buff. And that's the advantage of going, I guess, to try and, for people that want to go mono god, to give them a theme, but I think ultimately you're going to be better served mixing it up and having at least a couple of things, Nurgle or Tzeentch, if you want to go Khorne. Let's look at Slash. So, Graceful Killer. Until the end of the turning point, add 1 to the critical damage characteristic of friendly / operatives melee weapons. You could add 1 to your crit damage, or you could get 1 extra damage on every successful hit, but only the first time you fight. But that's, I mean, Blood for the Blood God is just better than Graceful Killer. Delicious Agony. Until the end of the turning point, each time friendly / operative fights in combat in the resolve successful hit step of that combat, when you would resolve your first successful hit, if the target is injured, you can resolve 2 of your successful hits instead of 1. Right. I mean, Khorne's just better. See, this makes me sad, and we'll talk about this on another slide, but the Khorne, better than Slash. Mechanically, unless I'm being very stupid, is just better. So, if you're playing to place in tournaments, if you're playing to do well, then one of your Marks of Chaos is going to be Khorne. Right, it just is. You know? And then we'll look at Nurgle and Tzeentch. So, first of all, they get a base ability. We're going to change my pen, I guess, because we're looking at the more defensive ones now. So let's have a different colour of pen. Nurgle. Each time a shooting attack is made against the operative in the roll defense dice step of that shooting attack, you can retain 1 save as a critical save. Well, that's pretty good. Every time you're shot, you can have a save as a crit save. To Tzeentch, every time you make a shooting attack in the roll attack dice step of that shooting attack, you can retain 1 of your attack dice of a 5-up as a crit. Oh, so you've got a choice between a defensive ability and a shooting ability. Well, they both seem good. They both seem good. It's a shame you can't mix them. Let's have a look at the ploys and see where we get. So until the end of the so we're over at these Nurgle ploys now. Until the end of the turning point, each time normal damage will be inflicted upon a friendly Nurgle operative from an attack dice. Subtract 1 from the damage inflicted from that attack dice to a minimum of 2. Okay, that's pretty solid. Implacable. Until the end of the turning point, friendly Nurgle operatives are not treated as being injured. Ignore negative modifiers to the APL. Ignore worsening of their ability skill when performing the Overwatch action. Yeah, that's pretty good as well. You know, it's kind of Plague Marine-esque, isn't it? I would expect Plague Marines, when they get their bespoke White Dwarf list, or whatever they're going to get, they might get some, because they've already got this, don't treat themselves being injured. I expect they might get some more of these kinds of things. We'll see. Let's have a look at the Tzeentchy stuff. Until the end of the turning point, each time a shooting attack is made against a friendly Tzeentch operative in the roll defense dice step of that shooting attack, if you retain any critical saves, you can select one of your failed saves to be a normal save. So you have to get a crit, and then you can flip a failed to a normal. That's situational, right? It's alright. Or you can just have 4 invulnerable saves. That's pretty good. So Tzeentch gives you a mix between a shooty buff on the mark itself and defensive buffs in the ploys. Nurgle gives you, they're all defense. I mean, those are much closer, I think, than choosing between Khorne and Slash. I think you could do Khorne Nurgle or Khorne Tzeentch, and you wouldn't, yeah, you wouldn't worry. I would be tempted to go Khorne Tzeentch, I think, just because if you're taking a sorcerer, the sorcerer's going to have either Nurgle or Tzeentch, and then your sorcerer, you're going to want him to have bonuses to his attack, right? The empirical guidance. So I would be taking Khorne and Tzeentch, and basically putting Tzeentch onto my sorcerer, a plasma gun, things like that, my shooty guys, and Khorne on my slappy guys. But Nurgle's not bad. If you like Nurgle, Slaanesh I think is actually bad. You can also go Undivided. So Undivided gives you this, Vicious Reavers. Each time you fight in combat or make a shooting attack, in the roll attack dice step of the combat or shooting attack, if your target's in red, you can reroll one of your attack dice. That's pretty solid. And then you've got Hateful Assault and Malicious Volleys. I'm not going to road them out. They are keyed to Undivided. Now that you can use them, they're not actually keyed to Undivided, but it says down here in the Favourite of the Dark Gods, if you have Undivided, those are the two you get to choose from for free. So if your leader or your icon bearer is Undivided, you can give your entire team Malicious Volleys or Hateful Assault for free each turning point, which I think is a decent option if you're going to go down a bolter heavy list. Certainly if you were taking the models that you had from a compendium team and you wanted to put them and run them with the new rules, and you give them all Undivided, and then you have loads of bolters, and you just get free Malicious Volleys in the first turn, second turn, Hateful Assault in the third turn, fourth turn. That wouldn't be bad. That wouldn't be bad. I think it's not going to be optimal, I don't think, but it gives you something. I think a Khornate leader, though, is going to be the way to go. Personally, I think, especially as your leader's going to be a combat fella most of the time, right? But not the Vicious Reavers gives you nothing in combat, because it doesn't. But I think if you're doing the Khorne Tzeentch team and you're going to give your leader the mark of Khorne, and your combat guys mark of Khorne, and you're going to do Khorne, which is fine if you like Khorne. And then you've got to wonder why. All right, someone settled something for me. You can make a Khorne team with their one sorcerer, and their sorcerer has the mark of Tzeentch, and that's fine. But you can't mix Khorne and Slaanesh. Now, this is one of those Mandela effect things, or Sinbad the movie things. At some point, wasn't it Khorne and Tzeentch that were the opposed gods that couldn't be friends with each other? And then did they change it to be Khorne and Slaanesh? Now, I've talked to Sinbad about this, and he agrees, he swears double blind that it used to be that way and they changed it at some point. But neither of us can pinpoint the exact point at which they changed it and why they changed it. But I thought, I remember Nurgle and Tzeentch being opposed as well, because Nurgle is status and Tzeentch is change. But I'm sure I remember Khorne and Tzeentch being opposed, because Khorne hates sorcerers and Tzeentch is like a giant sorcerer bird. And yet, they've put these oppositional things in to make it fluffy, but somehow you could have, and it may well, I don't know, be an optimal pick, right? Have your really Khornate leader with all his muscly, murdery Khorne men and their Tzeentch sorcerer and maybe the one other Tzeentch guy with a plasma gun, and that's fine. But mixing Khorne and Slaanesh is not, did the background change? Or am I from an alternate dimension? If I am from an alternate dimension, at least Sinbad is from the same alternate dimension as me. I don't know. We also need to talk about the tactical ploys that wouldn't fit on the previous slide, but they are also keyed off of the marks. So there's one for each mark, including Undivided. And again, the Undivided one affects everyone. They don't actually have to be Undivided. So really, that's got nothing to do with Chaos Marks at all. I guess I just put it on a black box because I'm a maverick. Yeah. So if all you guys, regardless of what you're doing with marks, you can do Veteran of the Long War, which lets you, after you fight or shoot, if you didn't do if you whiffed, then you can have a redo. This was in the compendium. It's pretty good. Unending Bloodshed is the Khorne one, so when a ready friendly Khorne operative is incapacitated in combat by an enemy operative, before the friendly operative is removed from the kill zone, select one melee weapon it's attacked with and roll one attack dice, as if it is a fighter fighting in combat. If the result is a successful hit, you can immediately strike the enemy operative within engagement range and then remove... Yeah, so that's quite good if you've done a combat and you've died, but you've got him down onto 1 or 2 wounds, as often happens in Kill Team. You can spend a hand point to just have one last heave of the axe. I quite like that. The Nurgle one here, Malignant Aura. Use it during a friendly Nurgle operative's activation until the end of the turning point. While an enemy operative is within blue of the Nurgle operative, subtract 1 from the defense characteristic of the enemy operative. Oh, that's quite strong. Oh, that is quite strong. It gives you an aura of -1 defense. Yeah. It's just all you guys that are running up to get close to people are gonna have the mark of Khorne, though, aren't they? But that's still good. And if it gives you, if you really wanted to run like this is my warband and they all worship Nurgle and that's my truth, that's my fluff. You know, it gives you options. But I think if you're playing to win games, they're all going to be Khorne anyway. Sickening Captivation, so this is Slaanesh one. Use this tactical ploy during a friendly Slaanesh operative's activation. Select one enemy operative visible to him within blue of that Slaanesh operative, subtract 1 from that enemy operative's APL. Yeah, it's not awful. A lot of the Slaanesh stuff on the previous slide was pretty awful, but that's not awful. That's fine. Again, well, they're not. If you've got Slaanesh guys, you're not going to have Khorne guys, so it gives Slaanesh something else to do with its combat guys. They're going to be Slaanesh that have run up. I guess think Khorne gives you a better suite of power for you guys that want to slap people than Slaanesh does. And then Tzeentch, use this tactical ploy during a friendly Tzeentch operative's activation. Give the operative +1 APL. I mean, look, if you've got your gunner, your plasma gunner back with the Mark of Tzeentch, or your sorcerer with the Mark of Tzeentch, it's not often you're going to want to give them +1 APL, but sometimes with mission objectives you might just want to, so it's one that's nice to have in your back pocket, and +1 APL is always kind of strong. Yeah, it's going to be Khorne and Tzeentch all the way down, isn't it? So I don't like the Chaos Marks, and I don't like them as a thing designed for playing a competitive game where the army list is like a puzzle to be solved and you make your list and take them to tournaments. I think they're great. I think it's great narrative space. Fine. But I do attend events and tournaments, but I'm kind of in my soul, I'm a narrative gamer. Well, no, it's not even narrative, it's hobby oriented. I want to make my guys, right? Especially for Chaos, where you've got all these different legions, I want to make them my guys. And it's like, most people want to play, or like a lot of people that want to play Chaos Marines want to play Mono God. So they got their guys, and they want to paint them all. Like, if you've got your Space Marines, and you are playing them with the compendium rules, and they're all Slaanesh, and they're all painted pink, and you've converted some of them to have guitars, and now you've just got a suite of, you've got the worst. You are hobbling yourself compared to people that are using the rules more optimally. Now, for the Mono God armies, it's not so bad, because Plague Marines will eventually get a bespoke list, and I reckon that the World Eaters and the Emperor's Children will, when the 40k books come out, there will quite quickly be kill team lists for them, right? And so you'll have your own suite of rules, and you can kind of get by on what you can do with this, knowing you're going to get something better later for those Mono God legions. Because Mono God isn't just, if you're playing, you have to be playing the Plague Marines to use the Plague Marine rules. If you have any warband that is primarily devoted to Nurgle, I guess you'd want to use the bespoke Plague Marine rules when they appear, and not this. So if we say that these gods are mainly for people that want to play those mixed warbands, or they want to play those warbands where, you know, the famous ones that are mixed, like Black Legion or Word Bearers, things like that. Now, here's my other problem. I think that the Black Legion, the Word Bearers, people like that, would contain devotees to all the gods. And yes, they'd bicker and backbite and argue about stuff, but they wouldn't exclude each other. And I've already spoken a lot about this, I think, on the previous slide, because I was talking about how, you know, that it doesn't make sense to me that you can have your ones each sorcery and your Corn Warband, but you can't do other things. It's daft, isn't it? There will be an optimum way of doing it, and if how you want to paint and model your guys doesn't match that optimum, then you're kind of out of luck. That should be LUCK. But then, as discussed previously, I don't teach English. Good. Mini rant over. Let's talk about the equipment and the objectives. So, equipment. We've got aggression stimulant for just one model. Each time the operative fights in combat, in the roll attack dice step of this combat, if you perform a charge during this turning point, you can reroll one of your attack dice. I mean, that's pretty good. I don't think it's amazing, is it? Am I missing something? It's pretty good, but it is 3 EP, and you can only take one of it. So the designers probably think it's really awesome. So to my way of thinking, it probably is better than I think it is. So yeah, take it and give it to a combat guy. Why not? Then you can slap harder. We got grenades. Having access to frag grenades and crack grenades is a big deal. Right, I don't need to go over what they are and how good they are, but they're there. Warded armor gives you a tup save for 3 EP, and if an attack dice inflicts damage on the operative, its save characteristic. Oh. I was going to say it was just about worth it before I read the rest of it. I can get lost, right? 3 EP for +1 save that you then lose if you take a wound. No thanks. Suspenser system. Yeah, if we're taking a heavy bolter, then why not this? I think so. Yeah. Malign Scripture we've kind of covered. Again, I'd probably want to take that if I was taking the Balefire Acolyte. Tainted rounds. Bolt gun, bolt pistol, or tainted bolt pistol. Add 1 to damage characteristics. Fine, but it's 3 equipment points. Like, these are all expensive. Grizzly Trophy. While this operative is visible to within blue of an enemy, operatives will trap 1 for an enhanced characteristic of ranged and melee weapons. Yeah, see that? I like that. Give that to a combat guy. I mean, you could really tool someone up with the stimulants and the Grizzly Trophy if you wanted to, but that's pretty good. And the Malefic Blade. Yeah. I guess if you're taking like the combat team I talked about with the banner bearer with the bolt pistol and the chainsword, you can then give the banner guy the Malefic Blade to have an extra combat fella if you really want to go all combat. It's the only real use I can think of it. Or you stick it on your plasma gunner that you've taken just in case he gets into combat with someone and he stabs them. That could be quite funny, to be honest. Yeah, I think there's a lot of really good... what am I taking as all-comers equipment? I'm definitely going to take the Malign Scripture. There's 2. I'll take the Suspense System, so I'm taking a Heavy Bolter guy, so there's half. I'm going to take, let's go for a Grizzly Trophy on my Axe guy. Yeah, and then I've got 2 points left, so maybe a Malefic Blade on my Plasma Gunner, or Heavy Bolter guy. Or maybe a frag grenade, depending on what I'm going up against, isn't it? Something like that. Let's look at the TAC ops. So, as always, 3. Sacrilegious Mutilation. Reveal the TAC op the first time an enemy operative is incapacitated. Each time an enemy operative is incapacitated before it's removed, place 1 of your enemy corpse tokens underneath the operative. The second time a friendly operative performs the defiled, you score 1 VP. The 4th time you perform the defile, 1 AP, perform it while within black. When a corpse token, an operative cannot perform this action while within white of an enemy operative, remove the corpse token. Boy, that seems hard to score and kind of complicated, doesn't it? So you've got to kill 4 people, fine, and then you've got to get their friends away from their corpse so that you can do unspeakable things to the corpse, and you've got to do that to 4 corpses to score you 2 VP. It's not awful, but it's not great. Fiddly. Dark Desecration. Reveal attack op in the target reveal step at the first turning point. Select the terrain feature, any parts of the heavy trait. If 2 or more enemy operatives are incapacitated while within black of the terrain feature, you score 1 VP. If you achieve the first condition at the end of the battle, the total APL of friendly operatives within black of that terrain feature is greater than that enemy operatives, you score 1 VP. I mean, that's cool. Can you take that? Yes, you've got security, so you could take Dark Desecration at the same time as the one in the security deck, not Seize Ground, right? And then you double it up, which is nice. I mean, you might not be able to, because you might draw them both at the same time. So, but that's quite good. I like that one. I'd probably take Dark Desecration in my security deck as a swap out. Yeah, for one of the ones I don't like Plant Banner. Probably just outed myself as an idiot because maybe the meta gamers think Plant Banner is amazing, but I just Savage Butcher. You can reveal this attack op in the target reveal step of any turning point. Select 1 friendly operative. If 2 or more enemy operatives incapacitate, oh no, nothing where I have to select one of my guys to do the particular task, and then my opponent knows which guy that is, and then they can just kill that guy. No, thank you. So of those, the only one I'm taking is Dark Desecration. I'll swap something I likely start the security deck out for Dark Desecration. Probably Plant Banner, or what else is in there that's annoying? Probably Plant Banner. Maybe Hold the Line, depending on how many shooty guys I've got, but probably Plant Banner. Yeah, good. Final thoughts. So the first thing is all the moans that I had about marks and how you can't do exactly what you'd want to do and still feel like you're being optimal. Like, it's still better. It's still better. So if you've got your guys, your Chaos Warband that you've converted up, and they are the flayed skin befoulers, and they're all worshipping Slanesh, then you're still better off using these rules than you are sticking with Compendium. Same if you had some fallen angels that you were using as your warband, and they're not particularly fond of any of the Chaos Gods, you're still better running them with this. Give them all Chaos Undivided. You're still better off. Anything you can come up with in the fluff that's interesting, Alpha Legion, you know, you're still better off. You've still got a buff compared to the Compendium. And you don't have to run any of the new guys. You can take your Compendium team, Plasma Gun, Heavy Bolter, Leader, Banner, Warrior Guy, and you can run it in this. And yes, you lose your cultists, but nobody that I know of was taking cultists anyway, and generally speaking you got a buff, so that's good. What I want to talk about in the comments is what do we think about elite teams in general. So this is the first big box elite team. I guess it's the second elite team, the second bespoke elite team, because you've got Warp Coven Avenue as well. You know, I'm mindful of, I know I keep banging on about it, but I went to an event at Warhammer World with the Novitiates, and I was outnumbered in every single game, and that was with a 10-strong team. Numbers are really king at the moment. That's the prevailing wisdom in meta. Numbers, 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 numbers. It's all about taking teams where you can get, I feel, over 10 miniatures on the table. So suddenly you rock up with 6. how are you genuinely going to perform? Have they been given enough tools? And that's why, to look back, the Chaos Marks things sticks in my throat a little bit, because I feel like being an elite team is already playing with a slight disadvantage because of the numbers thing. So you're then going to have to, you haven't got the room, if you want to do well, to take the suboptimal pick and say, oh, I'm doing this for cool narrative reasons. It's more difficult to do that. Have you got any experience playing with or against these guys? Because I haven't. I've never played with them. I'm not going to. Mrs. T.I.'s taken our Legionaries and she's got them. She's painting those up. I haven't played against them yet either. So if you've got experience, let me know your thoughts. What did I say that rung true, and what did I say that was total bilge? Okay. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's been quite a long video. It's one that I wanted to do for a while. I've just sort of found the time. Yeah, I hope you have a great day. Cheerio, everybody.